Hey everybody, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. So glad that you're ready. Um, as our opening today, I know that this is a really busy time of the semester for so many of you. That this, without a spring break, it seems like we needed a break, and yet we have to work with what we have. So here in this moment, remembering that this is our moment to be right here and right now. So put your feet on the floor, close your eyes if it helps. Put yourself into a posture of awareness, of being upright, of being ready, of being poised. And then take time to breathe, tuning in to your body and your breath. Take a moment to become aware of where you are and where you have been today. I'd like you to bring to your attention something that has supported you today. Something that has supported you in the time between the moment that you woke up and this moment right now. There are so many different kinds of support. Take a moment and consider what you have needed and how those needs have been met. And then really feel your way into that. How does that support make you feel? I'd like you to take time to talk about this in your groups. I'd like you to take 3 minutes and talk about this idea of support and needs being met and how those things go together. Thank you for your conversing, your stories. That's what makes a culture rich is our stories, I believe. Um, this quote by Henry Matisse: "There are always flowers for those who wish to see them." I'd like you now in your group to take this in and really think about what he means. Have a conversation about, what does this bring up for you? Yeah, what does he mean by this? Some of you are sharing in the chat. Someone said, "There's beauty wherever you go as long as you look for it." Somebody else said, "We have the choice to look at the threat of the thorns, or also the choice to admire the roses." Somebody else said, "Sometimes people need to find the beauty in things that may not show it very evidently or clearly. If we take the time to work on ourselves and relationships, like flowers, they will bloom." I love your thoughts about this quote. Someone else said it's the perspective, about perspective and how you choose to view things. So for me, this quote is a lot about being able to see through the hard stuff and be grateful for what I can see, for the hope in the situations. There is a lot of choice implied. Somebody else says you can choose to find the flowers, or you can choose to see the worst parts of life. You can choose to see the thorns. So there's a lot of choice in this quote. And for me, it brings up a lot of gratitude and the fact that gratitude is a choice too. So how does the idea of opening to gratitude change how you might feel in this moment? Somebody in the quote or in the chat is already on this, that gratitude is a grounding experience. How could expressing gratitude change our relationships with ourselves and with others. And what happens if we think about what makes us grateful for the natural world where we are right now? You are in so many different places all over the world watching this right now. Um, what makes you feel, what could it change if we think about the gratitude that we feel wherever we are right now, in whatever moment? The natural world is all around us, no matter where we are. So I'd like you to now share for a couple of minutes in your chat about what are you grateful for in the world, the natural world around you, wherever you are. It might involve a story, and that's cool. So I know that the last four classes, I know that they have been very challenging for me. I know that they have been addressing or facing issues of crisis, and many of those, all of those, are directly related to this natural world that we can feel such gratitude and such connection, gratitude for and connection with. And so to face this world of wounds that we've been talking about, um, the the challenges of this world, the things that the way that our systems are working can be so heart wrenching. This is what we're up against. This is what we're trying to fight. This is what we're trying to act out upon oil spills, disrespect of other lives, deforestation, the tragic situation of the ocean, abject poverty, proliferation of chemicals, chaos with the climate and dump sites, mountaintop removal for coal. So this is the tragedy and chaos that we have been talking about. We are up against a world of wounds. And here we are thinking about the things that we're grateful for is that we can have power. That's one of those things. With the love that we carry, the importance that we can carry for the natural world and all of its beings, we are able to make statements and make change. So we're going to dive into part 2 of part 2. And with that, we have to ask why. Why is this the state of the world? Why is this? Those 9 pictures that I showed you are symptoms. They're things that are showing up because of some imbalance. But we need to dive down and figure out what the root cause is. Just like I said about the side effects of chemicals, they aren't really side effects, they're effects, they're direct effects. And this is the same thing. We are looking at these things, these symptoms that make us so angry and so upset, then they are based on the root causes. Something else is going on. And so take a moment in your notes page there, on your notes page, to write down, what do you think? You might throw some things into the group chat here. Take a moment and think about what your theories are about what's causing all of this brokenness, all of the breakdown. What's causing, what's at the root of all of these symptoms? TAs, if you have any input, you can throw it into the chat so that I have that for reference. So we're going to look at some of these root causes, or what I believe to be some of the root causes of where we are. And I imagine that they are some of the things that you have written down on your paper too. We're going to look first at world population and ask ourselves, is this the main cause of today's ecological crisis? So this, if you have the notes pages, this is there. If you don't have that, it's okay. Take a moment to look at it here so you can see where we hit that 1 million people. I appreciate the things that are coming through in the chat, and we'll get to a lot of those in just a few moments. So when we hit 1 billion people, excuse me, I said 1 million earlier, 1 billion people was here at, we hit it right around 1850 is when we hit 1 billion people. And then you can see that from there, it took 80 years to double again to 2 billion. So it took in 80 years what it had taken 100,000 years to do before it. and then it grew 1,000 times faster than it did in previous history. And obviously we know that it is just continuing as we speak today. So is population, what's happening with our population is this exponential growth. So this is linear growth when it's the squares going straight across, and the trend is that it increases the same amount over each course of time. But what we are experiencing with our population is exponential growth, where growth becomes explosive. It's doubling at such an incredible rate. And so we've looked at this crazy cool image before, the picture of Earthrise that was taken during the lunar orbit of Apollo 11 in July of 1969. And that was taken just before the population hit 4 billion people. So 1969, it hit 4 billion in 1970. And so now we are, well, I'd like to show you where we are right now. Here's our current world population. So in 1970, we were at 4 billion, and the current world population is that we are nearing 8 billion. We're expected to hit 8 billion in 2023, 2 years from now. And so we will have doubled from 4 billion to 8 billion in 53 years. And yet, we have the same size planet that we did before. Nothing has changed. It's the same landmass, the resources, but the human role has changed dramatically. So what comes along with that population explosion, is that we have the great acceleration, as scientists have called it today. So as our world population has gone up, so have all of these socioeconomic trends changed to meet the needs of the world population. Fertilizer consumption, primary energy use, urban population, dams, water use, paper production, telecommunications, transportation, all of those things have followed the same curve. And in addition, the Earth system trends, you can see the carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide and methane that we've been talking about, the stratospheric ozone, the surface temperature, ocean acidification, they have all changed in this same dramatic exponential pattern that our population has changed. And so somebody said in the chat that it's the Industrial Revolution and the aftermath that we're experiencing. Yes, the Industrial Revolution, but even more so dramatically since around 1950 or so. This is what scientists are calling the Anthropocene. It's the current geological age. It's viewed as the period during which human activity has been the dominant influence on climate and the environment. So some people start the Anthropocene at the time when farming became the way to go, the agricultural revolution, which was 12 to 15,000 years ago. So maybe that's when the real changes started to happen. And then other people put it somewhere closer to 1950 or 1960 with the advent of plastics and how our patterns have changed. What happened then in World War II, post-production, and the consumption had slipped into overdrive at that point in the 1950s. And we as producers and consumers moved on to this exponential trajectory, fueled by the use of Earth's resources. So since 1950, we've been consuming more, and we'll dive more into that. A lot of you mentioned this as a cause, that root cause that we were talking about. We'll get there. So, of course, we've already seen this, the idea that species extinctions are on the same kind of curve. This report is that around 1 million animal and plant species are now threatened with extinction within decades, not within centuries or millennia, but within decades. 1 million animal and plant species are going to threaten with extinction. And so, yes, there are more of us. So population definitely plays a role. But it's also this. So we looked at an image, you had a conversation about an image like this the other day, specifically around fossil fuel use. But now, how does this connect to our topic for today? How does this connect to the ecological crisis that we're experiencing today? So take another moment with your group and really dive into this. Some of you have already started this conversation, I can tell from your answers in the chat. Thank you. So a lot of you in the chat, I'm seeing things like it's about greed, it's about consumerism, selfishness, and ignorance. It's about turning our heads away to the consequences. It's about lack of empathy and connection. It's about finding our self-worth through consumption. People buy what they want and don't think about the underlying repercussions of their greed regarding the environment. We are expanding and consuming beyond our means, which causes a feedback loop and makes us want more and more. Someone says companies cut corners and overproduce to make things cheaper. Sort of a backwards system. We have increased our consumption of stuff over 3 times. We have increased our consumption since the 1960s. And I believe that this is a lot about the disconnect, that we don't see or feel the connections to where these resources are coming from. Sometimes we don't feel connected to each other, we don't feel connected to ourselves, and all of this leads to the way that things were marketed. Things are marketed to us. We are referred to in America as consumers, not so much as citizens anymore. We're referred to as consumers. Corporations spent $240 billion in 2019 for advertising. $240 billion. That's about $725 per person in the United States to convince us to buy stuff. So we're going to look at an example and see how this has happened over time. I think about these things as evolving sometimes almost imperceptibly. So we're going to look at the example of Coca-Cola. Delicious and refreshing. It's at soda fountains, and you can get it in carbonated bottles for 5 cents. This is back when Coca-Cola started. This is one of the first advertisements. It's delicious and refreshing, so you definitely want it. And there's this voluptuous, beautiful woman who's advertising it, so you definitely want to be like her. Oh, now we're moving into the 20s, where Coca-Cola is now pure and wholesome. It's being consumed by more beautiful women of the time. There is nothing like it when you're thirsty, delicious and refreshing. And so you can see how the advertising changed over the course of time. Here we are at the 50th anniversary at 1936, from when it began in 1886. They're appealing to some level of deep psychology here when this product, particularly Coca-Cola, has been advertised in these ways. Oh, here we are, moving forward in time. Coke for hospitality. Look at that. You can have your friends over and serve them Coke, and they're going to like you. It's the perfect thing for cookouts. The friendliest drink on earth. Now we're getting into a time that I can remember these advertisements for Coca-Cola. So if you drink it, then you are going to be friendly. And Coke is for lovers. This is great. You can go on sexy dates and drink your Coca-Cola together. Oh, and this is the first mention that other people, other than white people, consume Coca-Cola, particularly athletes. That's cool. And so definitely I want to be strong and tough like that guy is. So I'm definitely going to consume Coca-Cola now. Open happiness. So now what they're appealing to is something that's happening in our culture. The idea, the sense that people are not happy. And so it's easy to gain happiness by opening Coca-Cola. And might as well continue the beautiful woman stereotype as we continue on forward in time. So they're appealing to this deep need to be accepted, to be part of community, to be cool, to be interesting, to be included, to be refreshed. So this is all in addition to its addictive ingredients. One bottle, one serving of Coca-Cola includes more sugar than any of us should consume in a day. It's engineered with just the right amount of sweetener and the right amount of caffeine and the right amount of carbonation so that you want to continuously grab and gulp Coca-Cola. For those of you studying marketing, I want to tell you that I'm not slamming this industry. I think it's brilliant. This is an opportunity for us to see with new eyes and to reflect on how these businesses call in our attention. How do they tell us what we need to feel all these ways? How am I subject to marketing? It's a question for all of us to ask ourselves. How am I subject to marketing? And it happens for all of us. All of these different businesses are trying to attract our attention. Who am I? We end up being branded in the way that that people are seeing what we're buying. They're seeing what we're doing. We're being called in. Nike is not just selling cool shoes and clothes. They're selling just do it. Man, that's selling encouragement. That's selling confidence. Coach purses and bags. They're selling the lifestyle of the rich and famous. Louis Vuitton, I looked it up, their tagline, classy, admirable, and instantly recognizable, which is really funny because I got a mask from a friend of mine and it had the Louis Vuitton logo all over it, and I just thought it was a decoration. I didn't really take note. And it was my 19-year-old son who was like, Mom, where did you get a Louis Vuitton mask? And I was like, oh, Sarah gave it to me. Like, I didn't know it was such a big deal. Apple selling connectivity and easy access to the world. And we could go on and on. But how does it all relate? When I buy those sneakers or purses or clothes or electronics, what's the big picture of what we're talking about today? What we're diving into today is our ecological footprint. Ecological footprint is an accounting tool that enables us to figure out or estimate the resource consumption and waste assimilation requirements of a human population or an individual. So it measures the human demand on the natural capital. What does it take to support a population or an economy? By measuring this, we can assess the pressure on the planet, which helps us to manage our ecological assets more wisely in theory, so that we can potentially live within Earth's bounds, the bounds of the resources. So this week in lab is going to be about your ecological footprint, your individual connections and impact on Earth, and how your choices are impacting you too, not just Earth, not just the people around us. You will begin to consider how it is possible to increase your well-being while decreasing your ecological footprint. The UN reports about the species decline that I mentioned earlier says it's not too late to make a difference, but only if we start now and work from every level, from local to global. We can still conserve what we care about, what we depend on. We can still do this together. So as it stands right now, how many Earths do we need if the population lived like us? So what it's saying is that if everyone on Earth consumed like the average American, we would need to have 4.8 Earths to support what we need, or maybe I should say as consumers, what we take in. How is it that we're still here at all if we've overconsumed by 4.8 times? Well, it's because there are some people like those in India that have fewer resources and access to resources to consume. And so we're riding on the backs of other people. There are some countries that have low rates of consumption and fewer resources. We are taking more than Earth can regenerate each year. Last year, the overshoot day happened on August 22nd. What that means is that it's the illustrative date. It's showing us the date on which humanity's resource consumption for the year exceeds the Earth's capacity to regenerate those resources. So if we had just had to stop last year whenever we had consumed our share, we would have stopped on August 22nd. We are running an ecological debt. We are drawing down natural capital faster than it can recharge. And simultaneously, we're filling the atmosphere and the earth and the soil with too much waste, too fast. And so now I know that we've gotten heavy again. There is a new blog prompt up, and I encourage you to look at it. There hasn't been much action on the blog as of yet, but please remember that it is an extra credit option for you. When coming into full relationship with the difficulties facing Earth, it can all be upsetting. So it can lead us to pessimism. It can lead us to frustration. And yet there are ways that we can act. So the new blog prompt is there for you as an option to put out some of what's going on for you in your feelings and your thoughts. The One Planet Alliance is a group that's recognizing, valuing, and protecting biological capital of the Earth as humanity's most critical asset. It is the role and responsibility of this group. It's actually a council of many nations with a shared vision in addressing natural resource security and overseeing, sustaining, and growing this idea of the ecological footprint initiative around the world. So it's when we can work together within our neighborhoods, within our communities and towns and cities and states and nations, as well as internationally, that we are going to tackle these challenges. So from the beginning of this class, I asked you to hold on to the question, how could your gratitude for the natural world shape your relationship with the natural world? How can your gratitude help you to form other connections? I'd like you to take in this video.
When in the course of human events,
在人类活动的过程中
in the course of human events,
عندما نكون في مضمار الأحداث البشرية
quand dans le cours des événements humains,
becomes increasingly necessary
para reconocer
to recognize the fundamental qualities
yang menghubungkan kita.
that connect us.
that connect us
That connect us.
Après ça, nous devons évaluer.
the truths we hold.
To be self-evident.
Alors nous devons réévaluer les vérités que nous tenons pour acquises.
That all humans are
Created equal.
And all are connected.
比如每个人都是生来平等，并且联系在一起的。
That we share the pursuits of life,
La recherche d'une vie meilleure.
Liberty,
happiness,
Kebahagiaan.
Food,
والغذاء, water, agua, shelter,
El refugio.
seguridad,
Education.
and justice.
And hopes for a better future.
That our collective knowledge,
Economy,
technology, and environment are fundamentally interdependent.
Interdependent.
Ketergantungan kita.
that what will propel us forward
لأن لدينا شجاعة على التقدير.
is our curiosity.
Curiosité.
Rasa ingin tahu kita.
Ability to forgive, kemampuan kita untuk memaafkan.
our ability to appreciate,
Our courage.
Courage
Keberanian kita.
and our desire to connect.
D'être connecté.
Quality.
That these things we share.
في نهاية المطاف إلا تطور.
To our fullest common potential.
Le cose che noi teniamo insieme sono le cose del nostro mondo.
我们应该严肃对待我们的问题。
We should never take ourselves too seriously.
Kwa sababu jambo jingine linalotuunganisha
هو قدرتنا على الضحك.
Dan upaya kita untuk belajar dari kesalahan kita.
So that we can learn from the past.
Understand our place in the world.
memahami tempat kita di dunia.
Use our collective knowledge.
To create a better future.
去创造一个更美好的未来。
So perhaps it's time
Jadi mungkin sudah saatnya kita
That we, as a species,
sebagai spesies, as a species,
Love to laugh.
Que disfruta de reír.
love to laugh,
Poser questions.
ask questions, and connect.
do something radical and true.
for centuries,
We have declared
Independence.
Perhaps it's now time.
That we
As humans,
declare our interdependence.
Interdependenza.
Interdependence.
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 Interdépendance.
It almost feels like an un-American thing to talk about because I know that I was raised to be a very independent woman. I can change the oil in my car. I can grow my food. I can take care of my own plumbing most of the time. I can do things for myself. I am independent. And yet I need to ask for help. And I have learned that over time that I will only be stronger and my community will only be stronger if we can do this for each other. We need to be able to do this for each other in our small communities and in our global community. We are in this together. We are a community of humans. Trust and care and reach for those connections. And so I'd like you to really think about what that means for you, what that means in your family, what that means in your connections. Oops. So here is this week's Packback reflection. And I think that this idea of independence versus interdependence can play a role. In this community of Baisai, we can be helping each other to find solutions, to find answers, to find connections when it comes to responding to upset and concern. So thank you for opening your ideas. Thank you for opening your hearts. And I hope that you have a beautiful day.